My girlfriend kissed her just friend and says it doesn't mean anything. I never imagined my life could become such a dramatic soap opera, but here I am, living through a plot twist I wouldn't wish on anyone. Let me take you back to the beginning, before the drama unfolded, before the heartaches and regrets, before the tangled mess of emotions that I'm now trying to unravel. Her name is Emma. We met in college, that time when life is a mix of freedom, excitement, and endless possibilities. We were part of the same group of friends, laughing through late-night study sessions, surviving brutal hangovers together, and sharing dreams of what our futures might hold. Emma and I clicked from the start. There was something about her, a spark, an energy that drew me in. Before long, we were inseparable. We started dating, and those were some of the best years of my life. Fast forward 5 years, and our relationship was still strong. We'd weathered the storms that young couples face and had grown even closer. But as life would have it, things weren't always smooth sailing. We hit a rough patch, one of those inevitable times when everything that could go wrong did. We argued more than we laughed, spent more time apart than together, and the cracks in our relationship began to show. Eventually, we decided to take a break. It was mutual, or at least it felt that way at the time. We needed space to figure things out. During our break, we stayed connected to our group of friends. There was comfort in familiarity, and even though we weren't together, Emma and I couldn't completely let go. I'd see her at parties, and it would sting a little every time. But I was determined to give her space, and maybe in the process, find some clarity for myself too. And then came that party, the one that changed everything. It was a warm summer night, and the air buzzed with music and laughter. I had made up my mind to talk to Emma that evening, to see if there was a chance for us to get back together. My heart raced with a mix of hope and anxiety as I walked into the backyard where everyone was gathered. I scanned the crowd, looking for her, and my heart stopped when I saw her. There she was, laughing and carefree, leaning in close to her best friend, Alex. Now, let me tell you a bit about Alex. He was part of our circle, always had been. Tall, charming, with a knack for making everyone feel at ease. I never had a reason to be jealous of him until that night. I stood frozen, watching as Alex leaned in and kissed Emma. For a moment, the world stopped, the laughter, the music, everything faded into the background as I stared in disbelief. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut, knocking the wind out of me. I turned and walked away before they could see me. I spent the rest of the night in a daze, trying to process what I'd seen. It wasn't until the next morning that I could bring myself to talk to Emma. We met up at a quiet cafe, and I could tell from the moment she walked in that she knew something was wrong. Her eyes were red, and she looked as if she hadn't slept. We sat down, and I blurted out, "I saw you with Alex." Her face fell, and she reached across the table, grabbing my hand. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "It was a mistake. I was confused and lonely, and I didn't know what I was doing." I wanted to believe her. I could see the regret in her eyes, and despite the hurt, part of me still loved her. We talked for hours, crying and apologizing, trying to make sense of the mess we'd found ourselves in. By the end of it, we decided to give our relationship another chance. I believed her when she said it was a one-time thing, a moment of weakness that wouldn't happen again. For the next 3 years, we worked hard to rebuild what we had lost. Things between us improved, we laughed more, argued less, and the love between us seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. But there was always a shadow hanging over us. Every time we went out with our friends, every time I saw Alex, the memory of that night would come rushing back. It gnawed at me, an invisible wound that refused to heal. I tried to talk to Emma about it several times. "It's not that I don't trust you," I'd say. "It's just that seeing you with Alex brings back all those memories, and it makes me anxious." She'd listen, nodding, but I could tell she didn't fully understand. To her, it was in the past, a mistake she regretted, something she wanted to forget. But for me, it was a wound that kept reopening, no matter how hard I tried to move past it. Alex was still around, still a part of our friend group, and it was impossible to avoid him. He was always there, at every party, every gathering, and every time I saw him with Emma, it was like reliving that painful night all over again. I tried to mask my anxiety, to put on a brave face and pretend that everything was fine. But the truth was, it wasn't, not for me. I started to dread our social gatherings, the parties that used to be so much fun. I found myself making excuses to avoid them, but Emma loved our friends, and I didn't want to take that away from her. I felt like I was caught in a lose-lose situation. If I went, I'd be miserable, haunted by my insecurities and anxiety. If I didn't, I'd be letting Emma down, missing out on the good times we used to share. Our conversations about Alex became a source of tension between us. Emma would get frustrated, saying things like, "How many times do I have to tell you that it meant nothing? It's been 3 years. Why can't you let it go?" And I tried to explain my side, that it wasn't about trust but about the memories and the anxiety they triggered. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't seem to make her understand. It was exhausting. I loved Emma, and I knew she loved me, but the presence of Alex in our lives was a constant reminder of the past, a thorn in the side of our relationship. I started to question myself, wondering if I was being unreasonable, if I was letting my insecurities get the best of me. But every time I saw them together, the doubts would come flooding back. I decided to seek advice from friends, hoping for some perspective. Some told me to let it go, to focus on the present and not dwell on the past. Others suggested that maybe it was time to have a serious talk with Emma, to set some boundaries about Alex. But no matter what advice I got, nothing seemed to make the anxiety go away. There were nights when I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events of that night in my head. I'd wonder if things would ever go back to normal, if I'd ever be able to look at Emma and Alex without feeling a pang of jealousy and hurt. I hated feeling this way, hated that I couldn't just move on and be happy. But the truth was, the past had left a scar, and it wasn't healing as fast as I wanted it to. One evening, after yet another tense conversation about Alex, I found myself standing in front of Emma's apartment, taking a deep breath before knocking on her door. She opened it, her eyes tired and her expression wary. "We need to talk," I said, and she nodded, stepping aside to let me in. We sat down on the couch, the silence between us heavy. I could feel the weight of everything we'd been through pressing down on me, and I struggled to find the right words. "Emma," I began, my voice shaky, "I love you, and I want us to be happy. But this thing with Alex, it's tearing me apart. I need you to understand how I feel, and we need to find a way to move past it." She looked at me, her eyes filled with sadness. "I know it's been hard," she said softly. "I never meant to hurt you, and I hate that this is still affecting us. But I don't know what to do. Alex is my friend, and I can't just cut him out of my life." "I'm not asking you to," I replied, feeling a lump form in my throat. "I just need some reassurance, some way to feel like I'm not being constantly reminded of what happened. I don't want to keep feeling like this, and I don't want us to keep having these arguments." We talked late into the night, our words a mixture of frustration, longing, and hope. By the end of it, we didn't have all the answers, but we had a plan. We agreed to set some boundaries, to limit the time we spent with Alex and to focus more on our relationship. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. Over the next few months, we worked hard to rebuild our trust and strengthen our bond. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments when the past would creep up on me, when the sight of Alex would send a jolt of anxiety through me. But Emma was patient, and slowly, we started to find our way back to each other. Looking back, I realize that the journey we've been on has been one of the hardest things I've ever faced. Love isn't always a fairy tale. It's messy, complicated, and sometimes downright painful, but it's also worth fighting for. Emma and I have been through a lot, and despite the ups and downs, I'm grateful for what we have. We're still together, still learning, and still growing. In the end, I've come to understand that healing takes time, and sometimes it means facing the things that scare us the most. Emma and I aren't perfect, and our relationship isn't either. But we're committed to making it work, to moving forward and leaving the past behind us. And for now, that's enough.